Not live yet.
We're live, but we are not.
We are live.
We are now live.
We are now live.
Yes.
All right.
Shut up, Justin Productions.
Yeah, we really, it's probably what it should be. You know, and I didn't even check to see if I was going to be in the camera right, but, whatever. We're going to go with it. We're going to go with it. Hi, it's been a while. Sorry. Yeah, busy. You changed jobs.
Yeah.
I changed jobs.
Holidays happen.
Holidays are a thing. And then the Super Bowl brings us back together. Go figure.
The Super Bowl. This is going to be fun.
Did you actually watch the whole thing?
I watched it. I regretted watching the first half. And I was about to just turn it off and walk
You know, I was super excited that for the 49ers. I was hoping they were going to win.
It's interesting because I was pulling for the Chiefs. I don't have a significant dog in either fight, but I don't know. Just Kansas City, they're kind of gritty and everything. Of course, San Francisco's pretty gritty right now too.
Yeah.
For completely different reasons.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this is Tabs. It's been a bit. We're hopefully going to get back on a regular cadence. It will probably not be next weekend.
No, I don't see that happening.
But we really want to get back on a regular cadence so we can, especially through this political cycle, it's going to be a thing, I think. So I think we're just going to start with prayer and then get into the first topic because this one's going to be fun.
This will be fun.
You want to kick us off?
Sure. So, Lord, thank you for this opportunity, for the ability to sit down with this technology, the capability of reaching millions and reaching out to 3 people. But we thank you for this opportunity to be together and to share our friendship and our discussion with the world. Be blessed by our conversation and be in everything we do. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
I should have shortened that. I should have been like, thanks God for the podcast.
Meh. It works.
It's
not everybody can have 300 million followers like some people.
Right. But we have the capability. And that's what I'm grateful for.
Hey, we'll see where this goes.
This could go viral.
So, just on a couple of quick...
For no other reason, the amazing camera angles and how well it's zoomed in.
You know, right now, I did a whole bunch of work this morning to make it so we could use multiple camera angles, and we're still probably only going to use one. And I'm going to have to do this to show you guys what I want to show you on screen, unless our producer gets here before I need to show stuff. But I'm not sure this is working right now anyway. So, you know, we're just going to go with it, see what happens. Hopefully the audio is better. We had some problems with a couple of our last streams where there was no audio or everything froze.
Or it was blown out.
Or it was completely blown out.
We'll see.
We got new mics. Hopefully they work. This is the first time we've used them, so could be great. Could absolutely suck. I did tune the gain just before we started, so should be
see how it goes.
So our first topic is, of course, the Super Bowl. That He Gets Us ad. Actually, both of them, because there were 2.
Okay, so I was thinking about this on the way in.
Sure.
And was there really a second ad?
Good point.
I don't even remember it.
There was.
What was it about?
I don't know.
Exactly. So there was no second ad.
So
they completely wasted their money.
So if we're going, and this apparently we're not going to be in disagreement on this one. If we're going using that metric, I'm not sure there was any ad.
Yeah.
Because
but nobody remembers the other ad. Everybody is talking about
very
the
true.
foot washing.
And the first one was about a minute long. The second one I think was about 30 seconds, so it was a much shorter ad.
I think the minute long one is a minute something or another.
Now, I've seen a bunch of people say it was a $100 million ad campaign. No way. The average cost of a Super Bowl ad this past cycle was $7 million. So 10 might be accurate for 2 spots, one half the length of the other. But still, okay. So there's a couple of potential issues here.
Sure, we'll go with that.
So one is, how effective could you possibly make an ad for $10 million in a Christian focus? Like, one of the things I've seen go around a bunch lately is the isn't there a better way to spend that kind of money?
Um,
Thoughts on that?
so I'll counter that a little bit. And I've thought
Hey, I'm
about
just asking
this.
for thoughts, not
Yeah.
poking a stance. So,
But that's been a significant thing, and I
Yeah.
think it's been coming from inside and outside the church.
Mhm.
Why are you spending your money that way? A, people from outside the church have no business telling people from inside the church how they spend their money. It's our money, we're donating it.
yeah, agreed.
And so, if you want to donate money to something, if you want to donate money to the church and you think it's going to a homeless shelter and it's going to an ad, then you have something to say about. But if you don't, it's not your money. It's not a big deal. It's like
Yeah.
me telling Pepsi how to run their ad, right? If I don't buy Pepsi,
Who cares?
even if I do buy Pepsi, I
Yeah.
paid them for their product, right? So, but from an internal point of view,
Yep.
they're spending that money on that ad. And so I will go back with where was Jesus and Paul's ministry to the poor? Paul took some offerings for the poor saints in Jerusalem.
Yep.
Jesus,
Yeah, he got on the church about not caring for the poor,
yeah,
but they didn't themselves. No,
Yeah.
actually, I think that's a really good thing to point back to.
but the benevolence ministry in Jerusalem was robust enough that we have theology around it,
Yep.
right? Like it was really discussed in the book of Acts. So I think it's okay to have two different streams. There's an evangelistic stream. There's a ministry. There's ministry to the
Okay.
poor, so on and so forth. So it's okay that money didn't go
Yep.
directly to homeless, because I can go to any city in America, go to a phone book. Y'all remember phone books? Anyway, look up food banks in any city in America. 90% of them will be run by Christian organizations.
Yep.
The church supports the poor, and that's never been an issue. So I think that's a red herring for people who are just mad.
I would completely agree with you on that. My stance on that is you've got to look at how much is being spent in aggregate and what's the ratio.
Yeah.
What does it look like? Like $10 million on a couple of ads. All right, let's ignore what potential reach they could have.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Let's ignore that for
dollar
right
per
now.
view was
Yep.
pretty low on those.
Let's ignore that for the moment and look at, okay, how much money is spent in ministry in the United States every year? Guaranteed it's a lot more than 100 times $10 million.
Well, I think the church we go to, which isn't a big deal church, is about a third of that every year. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at the financial statement.
No,
that they
yeah,
mail
we
out, but
are
it's right in that range.
Yeah, we are somewhere between. We're approaching a third of that,
Yeah.
and we're in a tiny little area.
Yeah. And
So
what do we have total aggregate, all three?
2,000
Yeah.
total.
So and that's a small
Yeah.
church in Dallas. That's like, oh, nice little starter church you got there.
exactly.
So
So I don't have a problem with the money spent at all. I mean, look at this. Buying a car, right? There's a standard of no more than a quarter of your income, kind of deal. And if you're on that, well, somebody who makes $1 million a year can buy a pretty expensive car.
probably shouldn't, because if you're making $1 million a year,
You probably don't want a $250,000 car
you could
and
be-
the expenses that go with it.
and you could be making more money with that money
Potentially.
instead of right.
But that's it's all about how much is being spent on what compared
Yeah.
to what,
That's true.
right? So, if you have no expenses and you're making $1 million a year because everything else is paid for and that's all extra, well, who cares,
Right.
right? So the idea of, okay, these guys, whoever's behind this campaign, and there's a big, the guys behind it. It sounds like it might be the guys behind Hobby Lobby. It might be partly the Mormon Church. It might be,
Yeah.
etc. Which those things raise red flags for me anyway. But that's it.
But it wasn't even church money. It
But it wasn't even church money.
tax-exempt
No,
money.
yeah, it was a bunch of people donated to this particular corporation that didn't have a 501c3, so it's not a charity. And they had enough money to just throw it away on an ad,
Yeah.
and they didn't care. So that's their prerogative. That's their choice. Now I get into how effective was it? You had a captive audience of 100 million people, and that's what you run?
So if all we're going to talk about its effectiveness, I think they were baller on this one.
That I don't think it has any effect whatsoever.
We're talking about it.
Okay, define effectiveness.
I guess it depends upon what you're
So
going for.
evangelism, I would put something like that.
But it's giving relevance to their organization, and they have a goal that's a little further than that ad. And so people are talking about their organization.
Sure. So let's
for free.
Let's make sure we're talking terms then, and make sure we're talking about the same thing. So in my opinion, that type of an ad fits squarely in the evangelism category. So it's reaching people for Christ.
I'm not sure it did, by the way, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay, what was their intent versus what I think their intent
what their
should have been?
intent was evangelism. I don't think they hit that mark at all.
I don't think they did either.
I think they hosed their message pretty hard. But
that's my point. That's actually
in a
my
way-
entire point.
but in a different way than I think a lot of people are talking about.
So my problem with I have a big problem with this ad. I have multiple problems with this ad. And actually, you know what? Before we keep going, just in case you guys don't know what we're talking about,
Are we going to run the whole ad?
I'm going to run the whole ad
Wowzer. Is this how we're projecting stuff on the video
right now.
screen
Yes.
today? This is
Yeah.
spectacular.
So this is he gets us
Foot
football
washing ad.
Super Bowl commercial.
Since we have the ad up, can we just talk about how obnoxious AI art is right now?
I don't want to. I've been beating that dead horse for weeks now.
So that was
It's
the
so
first thing.
bad.
I was like, they could have actually paid artists to do this. They had the money.
Or maybe they didn't because they bought a Super Bowl ad, right?
Because it looks like these were generated in about 10 minutes.
Oh gosh, and the audio quality was terrible. Sounds like a blown out speaker. And no, that is not a blown out speaker on my iPad.
So anyway, that must not have been a 1 minute ad.
No, that was. It was a minute, exactly.
Oh, wow.
So, that's the ad.
Time
It's-
flies when you're talking over the ad.
Yeah, it's a series of shots of people
Washing feet.
washing feet. Okay,
That is super relevant.
super relevant.
Super relevant.
So I want to hear. You've got this take from what was the guy's name?
Sky Jathani.
Sky Jathani. That
So-
I want to hear. So
So Sky.
let's go that route.
We'll introduce Sky for a minute. He's a Christian author. He's a kind of a back to the roots guy. I don't know how to describe Sky, but he does a show with Phil Vischer, who is the VeggieTales guy.
Okay.
And it's called The Holy Post, and it's a podcast that they do. So it's a little variety, and they talk about this and that and the other thing, and sometimes they get into deep theology stuff. So I was listening to it yesterday. And so first, let's just get past if this was, because I'm not quite ready to get into that part yet, but if
Sure.
this was meant as an evangelistic post, they way missed their mark. They're broadcasting to a post-Christian nation
Yep.
that may or may not know what foot washing represents. So that's the first one. So literally, my wife and I are sitting there on the couch, and I liked a lot of the messaging in the ad, and we may get, Donnarumma may feel a little differently about that, but I liked a lot of the messaging in the ad of, we love you where you're at, no matter what. This is where we are, or should be as Christians. But I don't know that anybody understood that. It felt like a polemic
Yep.
ad, not an evangelistic ad. So it wasn't.
Yeah.
I think
I can see that.
I think they were gearing it. It was a great insider ad to start discussion with Christians about how we should treat people who aren't Christians.
So I like the theory behind that. My problem is that's not even right. Because the verses that relate to washing of feet. So John 13:6 through 12,
Right. He was washing.
the disciples' feet. And
Yeah.
he said, "Do this to each other." And then in Timothy it references it as, I think he's talking about Phoebe, who's well known, and one of the things that she is well known for is the washing of the Lord's people's feet,
Yeah.
is one of the things that he references. So this is like the washing of the feet thing occurs once in Scripture as a thing. It's referenced one other time. So it's not a huge thing to begin with.
No.
As much as,
But
things are huge in Scripture. And then on top of that, it was designed for showing reverence to each other as Christ's disciples was the intent.
Well,
That's where I think it if it's evangelistic or polemic, it missed the mark.
I think the way it's commonly taught in the church, and I think that's different than maybe what Jesus meant, but the way it's commonly taught in the church is kind of a servant's heart.
Yeah.
And having a servant's heart to people
Yes.
who, right? And they having a servant's heart towards people who are sinning differently than you and have a different belief system in you, I think is regardless of whether you think that was the correct symbolism to use, I don't think is an incorrect thing. And I think that's what they were going for. Yeah. But Sky had an interesting take on it. He's like, look, that isn't what Jesus was doing. Now, I'm not sure if I agree with Sky on this, but it makes sense.
Sure.
So you had an honor culture and an honor society, and no servant is greater than his master. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And Jesus takes on the role of the lowest man on the totem pole.
Yep.
And washes everybody's feet.
And the theology that goes through that is the first shall be last, the last shall be first. It's the upside down kingdom.
Or if you don't get it, then you're lower than Jesus. So it's a little offensive.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
Yeah.
I don't hate that.
That's a great take. And that does not translate to that commercial at all.
No, that really missed the mark if that's the case. So I want to point out a couple things. So with the section, it's John 13. It's actually most of John 13. Up until 17. So I'm going to read this real quick because I think it's prudent. So it was just before the Passover festival. Jesus knew that the hour had come for him to leave this world. This is the NIV, just in case people don't know. And go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped the towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." "Then, Lord," Simon Peter replied, "not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus answered, "Those who have had a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean. And you are clean, though not every one of you." For he knew one who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not every one was clean. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. Do you understand what I have done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and your teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. Very truly, I tell you, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them." So, going through that, Christ was literally saying, you are all equals. This is not beneath you because you are all equals. You are a servant to the other, they are a servant to you. And that was the intent. I'm going to get it, and so get us canceled on YouTube probably, or Facebook. But my biggest problem with this ad is it takes a sociopolitical stance. Not once in the entire thing does it show true equality between the people washing feet. Because it's...
So you're thinking it's teaching the parable wrong, but nobody understood
the parable. Nobody understood it in the first place.
It's not parable, it's narrative.
Yeah.
But,
so nobody understood it in the first place, which is bad enough. And second, who are the people predominantly washing feet in the? It's all white. They're all racially. It's all white.
I didn't pick up on that.
Like I think there's 2 or 3 out of all of them. There's 2 or 3
Yeah.
where it's not a white person washing the other person's feet. It had a political agenda on top of cool. Jesus' name's on the Super Bowl in front of 100 million people. It's wrong. It's like going to a mega church that's seeker centric or seeker sensitive, right? Where they're not preaching the gospel. It's Joel Osteen's church. You're not preaching the gospel. You're preaching, I don't know what,
Self-help.
right? Yeah, self-help.
Yeah.
And there's no place in that in the church. Like there's no place for that in the church. That's ridiculous. And that's my biggest problem with the whole thing. Is yeah, sure, it absolutely had an agenda, and it was posing as evangelistic, but it was a garbage ad. I actually got in an argument with my mother about it because my mother was like, "Oh, that's cool. They're doing the thing about Jesus," and like immediately, like the first one, I was like, "Oh, cool. This might be interesting." Oh, I see where this is going. Oh no, why? Like you just spent $10 million on a Super Bowl ad and you don't put the gospel in there at all? Nothing. No repent and turn and follow Christ. No, Christ loves you. He wants you to come to him. No, drop what you're doing and follow me. Like none of that. It's just he gets us. What does that even mean?
So,
Sorry. Now rant over for the moment. Unless you said something else.
Apologetics
Mhm.
doesn't have a lot of gospel in it,
Fair.
and I think that the purpose of apologetics, if you're going to use it as a gospel centric way of communicating,
Mhm.
is to remove barriers for people. Or give them the opportunity to remove barriers, right?
Sure.
To justify an intellectual barrier.
Yeah.
And I think
But hold on
that he
one
gets his
second.
campaign. Let me get through it.
Mm.
Let me get through it. So I think that he gets his campaign, as it sets, does have a use in removing a societal and emotional barrier. Christians are all just a bunch of self-righteous assholes, and they're trying to say maybe not. Like there's some of us that don't see it that way. Now
They missed the mark there too if they were going for that. Because there was no.
I don't know that they did because people, the outsiders looked at it and they were pissed because they were like, yes, you still are. They understood the message. They just didn't agree with it. But the amount of people from outside that said, no, you're still a bunch of assholes. I don't care what kind of ad you run, tells me that they understood the message. That rang through.
That's an interesting way to put it. So that gives it a little bit of a positive then. But my problem is that I feel like that the breaking down the barrier is only effective after you've presented the gospel. Breaking down the barriers to the gospel is only effective if they have a barrier to it in the first place. And my problem with that
We're
is
in a post-Christian society. Everybody
which means
has
most
a barrier.
people no, it's not most people has a barrier. Most people don't even know. The number of people that I have seen go, I don't even know who Christ is. I've never heard the name. I've never heard about Christ.
Yeah.
You're talking 100 million people who watch the Super Bowl, and most of them are watching because of Taylor Swift. So you're talking about her class of people. Most of them probably don't even know. They've probably never heard the gospel
your NFL
preached.
people are a little more God and country as a general rule.
Usually.
Yeah. Although I did see some menopause commercials at the beginning, and I was like, wow, that is an interesting. I didn't know that there was a significant enough demographic in the Super Bowl experiencing menopause that it's worth money running an ad.
So apparently,
that was very interesting.
This Super Bowl, this demographic was very different from most of the recent ones, and this year's season, especially when the Chiefs were playing, was very different than the rest of them. And there's a lot of conspiracy theory around that, but I honestly think it's mostly due to the publicity that. I don't like giving her this much credit, but Taylor Swift brought to that.
Well, Taylor Swift is a juggernaut.
Well, she's got hundreds of millions of followers. Yeah,
I think she could buy the NFL right
probably.
now. I mean, she's just a juggernaut.
She made the
absolutely
NFL
amazing.
like $300 million more this year just because she attended games.
She is a jugger. Has she
That's
gone
insane.
Has she gone after him for a royalty check?
She probably should.
She should. Oh my God.
But I mean, that being said, you know the demographic who's watching. You know how unchurched or church some of these people are going to be.
How many Swifties are going through menopause? I don't know. That music is a little bit universal, though. She does hit for a lot of people. Not for me, but for a lot of
anybody who was in their 20s or 30, like 20s, late 20s, when she started, probably would be about now.
Yeah.
Because she was 17, like 16, 17 when she first kicked it off.
She was on Good Morning America.
Yeah. And then
kind of kicked all that off.
Yeah. So,
by the way, I am completely baffled by why Taylor. But I totally respect her work
so
ethic.
I'm gonna pull something.
She seems to be a decent person.
I'm gonna. Have you seen many interviews with her? Look at. So I'm gonna pull something from Ben Shapiro, just because I think this is like the greatest summation of her music. She's in her mid-30s, early to mid-30s. And she has made a career out of singing "I'm 17 and just broke up with my boyfriend" music.
Yeah, she never reinvented herself, and it stuck.
Yeah,
like Madonna would reinvent herself about every 2 years.
Now,
Lady Gaga reintroduced herself about every 30 seconds.
Now,
on
what
stage, literally?
What she
every
does
song,
that. Yeah,
she'd have
yeah,
a costume
she's,
change, right?
She's crazy.
She'd do something brand new, and then Taylor Swift's like, "Nah, reintroduction is for the birds," and she just comes out and she's the same person the whole time.
So I appreciate the consistency. What'll be really interesting is if she marries Kelsey, because there's a big push to not get married in a lot of that age, like the younger age group right now.
Yeah,
like not get married, get
she's
married later.
Not Z, but she is young millennial. She's
so
kind of in that.
It'll be very interesting to see what happens to all of those people who are ardently against marriage when she gets married.
There's been a whole lot of stuff with Taylor Swift and politics and stuff, and I think she might be baffled and amused by this all around. But there was something like 16% of America that said that they would go vote if Taylor Swift asked them to.
Oh, that's amusing. So counter to that, I'm going to counter that.
How are celebrities?
Hold on,
us?
I'm going to counter that.
Anyway,
so last cycle when she did her big get out register to vote push, where she did it only saw an increase of about 30,000 voters.
So what people
She's got hundreds of millions of followers, and it only created 30,000 new voters. In polls?
In polls, maybe, and it is often different than how they act, right?
Yeah.
So,
which I found that statistic really amusing. Like, that didn't really have any impact.
She's not.
Well, politically,
she has not intentionally made herself a political juggernaut. That's not her. Yeah, that's not her.
Politics is not the same as being a cultural icon. Now, politics is downstream of culture. And one of the things that I've been doing that's kept me so busy recently is I'm supporting two federal campaigns, two congressional campaigns, and a local campaign and two committees. So I just got elected to chair of one of the committees, so that's
I saw that. I shook my head and said, what is he thinking?
I have a plan. It's fine. But in doing that, one of the things that a lot of people keep asking is, where's our Taylor Swift? Like, on the right, where's our Taylor Swift? On the conservative side, where's our Taylor Swift? And so I've been thinking about this a lot.
I know who it is, but...
No, I don't think we have one. And I think we don't have one, and I don't think that's a bad thing.
I think we do when he's running for president, but...
Nah, I don't think he counts.
He came out of the entertainment...
But he wasn't as big. Like,
he's not as big as Taylor.
Taylor Swift moved $300 million for one sport this year.
Yeah.
That's not Trump.
He doesn't have that kind of
sway.
No.
So we don't have, and he's not well respected.
He just got a $300 million fine. He's probably struggling to pay it. And
he's not going to pay it. He's going to appeal it. It's going to get turned over.
Never,
There's a whole, that one, he's done some shady shit. That one, if they're going to go after him on that one, they better go after every other real estate developer in
Right,
Manhattan.
because everybody, and I mean
That's-
everybody, overvalues the property. The bank takes that into account.
Yeah, I am down with holding people to account for fraud on financial forms if it's done evenly,
Yeah.
not as a political stunt. And that's like, how do you? I don't want to go down this road right now.
I was surprised that that particular trial made it through.
I'm actually not because of the judge.
And
The judge was an Obama appointee, and he is very controversial anyway, going after conservatives.
so it may not make it on appeal, because it's so hard to prove financial crime.
Yeah, well,
And especially like real estate valuations. No, I really thought it was worth that much. Like,
it already
prove that I didn't think it was.
the one that I really like. How do you value a brand?
Yeah.
How do you value the Trump brand?
People buy that. Well, I don't know. You might be able to, because people brand their properties.
Yeah, but it can
with
fluctuate.
Trump's name.
It fluctuates more than Bitcoin. The value of something like that.
Well, and you value it for what people will pay for it. So if you want the momentary value of something, you auction it, right?
Yeah, but so that okay.
So it's on the market. It's being sold for a certain amount of money.
He's sold his name for millions a year for one building.
Yeah.
It's got some.
Like I said, it has. What I'm saying is, I think that there's enough transactions. Because not many people sell their name.
So the
I
hard
tried
part.
to once. Somebody offered me 50 cents to go away.
I'll take it for $1. Have to get a new name.
Wow, that is so not worth $1. So I think Trump is in an unusual position where you actually can.
Actually,
you through forensic accounting, you can tell how much his name's worth.
I don't think you can.
For what he sells it for.
I don't think you can.
You don't think you can, even though he
Has
sells
he
it?
Well, has he sold it since after he was president?
I don't know.
If he hasn't, so if he has sense, then you can assess the value.
But he could have devalued his name since he became president.
But did he?
I don't know.
But which one was it?
He did lose money.
But that's why I'm saying, like,
he did lose money by being president.
Yeah.
People divested themselves of working
like
with him.
30% of his net worth disappeared.
He didn't make money on it. Most people make money on being president. Trump went the opposite direction, which is kind of funny.
Okay, Bush was like, he went from like 3-4 million, or no, 20 or 30 million to like 70 million. Clinton, that was Bush Senior. Clinton went from
Clinton's
like
all Beverly Hillbillies.
1.3 to 241.
Yeah.
Like,
and she stole to China on the way out.
like, holy crap, that increase in net worth during his presidency.
Yeah.
Right? Obama did like
He's doing
1.3 to 70, 80, something like that.
And is now
Bush
owns Netflix or
Bush
something.
Jr. was a similar, like, went 20 to 30 to, because they were already in business before he became governor even. And then Trump went from like, the estimate was like 3.2 billion to 2.1.
Yeah.
Biggest move of anybody.
And it was
down. And negative.
And it was down.
Like,
yeah. So he got in it for the money.
He totally got in it for the money. I mean, I do still think he got it in on a bet, to be fair. Like, I think somebody said, oh, you couldn't make it in a presidential campaign, and he went bet.
So,
and then lost $1 billion
just for the
in the
record,
process.
we're talking about Trump, and it's in fairly neutral terms. I despise the man. But I do recognize that there is truth in...
Yeah.
And then there is not truth, and it's interesting how he's done his stuff.
I have a problem with Trump as a example, as an individual, as a person. I have a huge problem with him. I can't stand the man. I don't like watching any of his stuff. I don't think he's a great example for how you do business. He has done well for himself, but he's not a good example of how you run a business. I think he was a phenomenal president. I didn't like how he talked. I hated it when he opened his mouth. But his policies and how he went about handling foreign policy, and how he went about handling fiscal policy until COVID. Man. Everything up until COVID was fine.
Yep.
And then And the problem with COVID, and I'll give a lot of grace on this, and I would give it to Biden if we had a recurrence and similar stuff happened. We knew nothing. We didn't know anything about it. We didn't know how long it was going to be. We didn't know how impactful it was going to be. We knew nothing about this virus. So they took the steps that they thought was prudent at the time. I'm going to give the entire government a pass on where that went. They shut everything down because they were afraid of it.
I agree.
They
I'll give it
compensated
a pass
everybody for it. They tried to fix it. Yeah, we're going to be in debt for that for a little bit, but we are in debt for a lot more for a lot of other stuff, so I'm okay with that.
Turns out inflation was the big problem.
Inflation ended up being the big. Well, we printed a whole bunch of money.
We got so much money.
We printed so much money, it was crazy. We were like at 13% inflation at one point last year. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, and everybody blames it on Biden. Biden would have happily contributed to this inflationary cycle, but Congress stopped him and said, whoa, I don't think we need it anymore. He wanted to get his own $1 trillion bill in, and Congress was like, I think, it's going to be ugly enough as it is, and so they stopped. But it was all Trump, guys.
My problem with Biden, notwithstanding, the first 2 years of fiscal policy take effect 2 years later. So we're now seeing the effect of Biden's fiscal policy, which isn't very good. But
when the Inflation Reduction Act is a big spending bill, that was just straight up 1984.
Yeah. No, I can't.
Like, how is it an Inflation Reduction Act? If you're adding money to the economy, that is not how inflation works.
And then you do stuff like you do stuff like increase our reliance on welfare programs because you have a huge immigration problem and you're not willing to close the border. And then you blame it on Republicans because they're not passing a bill to give you more authority to close the border. When we didn't have this problem with Trump.
I don't think the rules have changed.
Nope. Yes, they did because Biden rescinded them. So the big one was remain in Mexico.
Yeah.
The biggest one was remain in Mexico. You can come to the border. We will allow you to remain in Mexico while we process your asylum claim. Nobody wants to do that. So Biden killed that and let people come in.
Yeah.
And now what we get is last year, and I just looked this up because I actually did a press release on this for one of the campaigns I'm working with, and 680,000 immigrants, undocumented, sorry, I'm going to call it what it is, illegal immigrants.
Oh, they're documented.
Nobody knows where they are.
Seekers.
Nobody knows where they are because they take their statement, they apply them for asylum, they say come back on this date, and then release them into the interior. 680,000 undocumented immigrants last year.
So we don't know where they are.
Nope.
Yeah, and I.
That was from the Congressional Budget Office, that bastion of conservative processing.
I have no problem at all with greatly increasing our immigration numbers, but
sure, through our existing merit-based system,
and not even through merit-based. Just if you want to work, come in. But the
we need to stop letting people off first.
The asylum, nobody can find anybody to work right now. So the problem with using asylum seekers to backstop that is that it only works if they stay.
Yep.
And they're not allowed to work.
Fair.
And my wife deals with this. My wife deals with this all the time, where they have a job, and they're going just fine, and they do all the right stuff, and they apply, and they apply to keep their work permit, and then the work permit doesn't come through, so their employer has to fire them, and they're now drawing more welfare or homeless or whatever it is.
So I'm going to challenge
because they're not allowed to work.
The asylum seekers, maybe, sure. But I'm gonna challenge that we don't have a robust enough immigration system right now to handle that. Because I remember, Sunday River used to need thousands of people in the winter and very few people in the summer. Like that was just a ski resort in the mountains of Maine, big enough to need that kind of scaling in the winter. They always had a few hundred foreign workers that were brought over from Europe just for the season.
Sure.
So there are work programs, There are
Yes.
working immigration programs. I know we have them along the border because there's a whole bunch of people who cross the border to come in and work and then go back home at night
Because it's cheaper to live over
because
there.
it's cheaper to live over there. So we have those programs already.
There,
I wonder,
and I don't know if it's
I-
enough.
well, I don't know if it's enough either, but we can't tell.
Oh yeah, we can.
No, I don't think we can right now because we have enough non-tracked immigration that we don't know what the real numbers are.
We know
And most of the problems for employment are northern states.
in the state. Yes, yes, because the northern border doesn't have as many workers coming across it.
Yeah.
Oh no, I lived in Texas.
Yeah.
And we were working on the USAA building,
Yep.
which is a huge building. It's
Oh,
almost
yeah.
a half a mile long. I mean, you drive
Oof.
alongside that thing on the freeway, and you're like, there it is, there it is, there it is. Yep, still there. Yep, still there. It's kind of a wild thing. But we were working on the last two buildings of it, and so they had probably 100 people on the concrete crew because they did concrete decks all the way up it, and Border Patrol came through, helicopters, dogs came through.
Yep.
And guys are running for the bushes, and I mean, it was, and
Yeah.
you look out, and for the next 2 weeks, you looked out on that concrete deck, and it was just a ghost town, tumbleweeds blowing across it, like there's nothing. And then all those guys came back, same dudes.
Yep.
They started
So,
working again.
like-
So in the South, you get a lot of labor
point.
from that.
So we probably have programs for that.
Well, it wasn't programs. Those guys were all illegal. They just
Okay,
saved
well,
enough money to pay off the quota to get
but
back.
that goes to my other point of we don't know what the real need is because of stuff like
Well,
that.
we know what the real need is. If we don't have enough people, you already said there's enough people in the southern economy, in southern states. There's not enough in northern states. And I think part of it is it's harder to travel in the northern
Yeah.
states and you stick out more.
Yep.
So the company I used to work for, we hired as about 30 Mexicans.
Yeah, but
that
you're
we'd
talking
hire.
about it from the perspective of illegal immigration.
Or even legal.
My point with that is because illegal immigration is buffering those southern states needs for workers, we don't know what the real needs are because the companies aren't reporting it because they're filling the spots with illegals.
Yes.
So we
But up
don't know
here-
that there's a problem. Up
But
here,
up here we know.
we kind of know, but then we also know that we have a large unemployment problem. So there's a dichotomy of we have people who we have people who are looking for work, and we have companies who have job openings,
And they aren't matching up.
but they're not matching up, right? The tech industry is a victim of its own stupidity because it just overhires whenever it thinks something's going to go their way, and then cuts people because it's all numbers. They don't care about anything else.
50% workforce.
It's
cuts,
just
kinda.
freaking stupid.
Yeah.
And
Take all your.
I'm
talent
not
and
going
move
on a
them out
rant about venture
indiscriminately.
capital right now. That's not happening today, because I think that's the core problem. But so the challenge is like we have so many pieces of the economy that are at odds with what the needs are. You have small businesses that need people, manual labor, trades, restaurants, retail, all the service industries.
That is where immigration would backfill a lot of
Which
that.
is where immigration
New
would
York
probably
City,
be a thing.
It doesn't matter what restaurant you go to. There's a Hispanic in the back
Oh,
cooking your food.
Absolutely.
Your Asian restaurant.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Your
Yep,
Italian
yep,
restaurant.
yep.
Your Spanish restaurant. Your Greek restaurant.
But that's like
your Mongolian restaurant.
sure, we could probably fill that with immigration, but there's also that piece of we also have a welfare problem in the United States where people are comfortable making money on welfare and not going to work.
But the immigrants don't do that.
No, they work,
They work.
which is why I'm okay with opening up immigration programs.
Yeah. I'm huge.
But
I'm huge
my
on,
thing
on-
is
I think we should.
legal. It
Yeah.
has to be legal programs.
I think that part of the way, so market pressures are what they are, and you say something should be some way, and the market will say, nope, that's not what it is. So,
Sorry, what are you referring to?
I'll give an example, and this is why I think we should open, and why we should open up our legal immigration a lot more, and where the indicators are. In Canada, there's a pretty heavy tax on cigarettes.
Yep.
You know how they determine the tax? Black market prices.
Yep.
You just don't want to have your taxes higher than black market prices, and then you can get more tax money
Yep.
off of your cigarettes.
Oh, I mean, that's how we did cannabis in Maine.
So, and I'll give you a second example. I used to download music, steal it,
Yep. And then
pirate
they
it.
made it really cheap to just have access to the entire
And
library.
I would have preferred to pay for it because of the convenience of access and the
Yeah.
quality.
But you
right?
didn't want to pay $1 per track.
Yeah. So, well, at the time, I mean, when Napster first started, that wasn't even an option. The music
Right.
companies
Yeah,
were
you had
still
to buy
making you buy it on a
albums,
piece of hardware.
Yep.
And they hadn't caught on to it. Apple finally broke that. There were other people breaking it, but Apple was the one that really busted it wide open.
Yeah.
But all those MP3 players that everybody was buying before they had iPods
Yep. Yeah, it was like,
were full of stolen music.
Yeah.
There just
Oh,
wasn't
yeah.
much you could
Yeah.
buy. You literally couldn't buy it in
Yep.
a different way, or
No,
you had to rip it yourself off of a
Yeah.
CD, right? And so the black market took care of what the market wouldn't.
Yep.
And I think that's going on with immigration. I think the reason we have so much illegal immigration is because we should be making it legal because the market forces determine how many. Mitt Romney was right.
I wish-
people will self-deport if you change the conditions.
So I wish it was that simple. I think that's part of it. I think that is part of it. I also think. Have you seen any pictures from the border recently in the last couple of months, years, last year?
No, but it isn't just Latin America that's coming. through there
It's
now.
not, and it's mostly military-age men, and that scares the shit out of me.
So you're going there with it. Yeah, that's an interesting.
Well, it's not that I think there's anything in particular because I don't know,
Yeah.
but I do know that every picture I have seen, and that's from both mainstream sources and conservative sources.
Yeah.
Every picture I have seen, the majority of the immigrants that are being photographed because they've been caught are 18 to 35-year-old men.
From where?
Good question.
Okay. So there could be an economic reason for that too.
There absolutely could be.
So if you go to do development work in a very
But what we've done,
Very
hold
third
on,
world,
let me finish my thought. But what we've done is we've created a easy to manipulate system wherein if you get to some states, there are welfare programs for illegal immigrants, like California, for example. And that's where these people go. So then they're drawing off of the state's funds with no input.
yeah, if that's what's going on,
It's part of the problem.
right?
Part of the problem is companies just don't have enough people. They want people. People will cross the border to work. Cool. That honestly, that stuff, let's legalize that.
Yeah.
Let's just go, anybody who crosses the border to work, you're fine.
I think we're more secure if we document everybody that comes across.
Agreed.
Who's coming to get a job, and so we'll go back to the guy we were talking about. Trump wanted to do, what you were saying, merit based. His merit was, we only want your smartest people. We want to do a brain drain on the rest of the world.
Yep.
And we don't want anybody else.
So I agree
which
with
I
that.
don't necessarily think is a good idea
Well,
either.
I
but-
agree with that for citizenship programs.
Okay.
And I think that any worker-based immigration
So difference
should
between
have
green
a
card
path
and citizen.
should have a path to citizenship over a time frame. But I think we should be giving citizenship to anybody who has innovation and entrepreneurial capabilities, because it's a talent problem.
Well,
We
yeah.
need the talent.
Yeah.
We need to compete with China. We need to compete with India. We need to compete with the Middle East. We don't need to compete
Yeah.
with Russia because they've shown they're completely incompetent. I mean, Putin's a master at deception, but they're completely incompetent.
They don't. Industrialization is kind of like
I
North
mean,
Korea.
we
It
took.
goes one direction.
I like this example. We took Iraq in 16 days from across the world, and they've been fighting in Ukraine, which is next door, for how long?
Yeah, this is across the street.
Like, come on, people. There is a very big power discrepancy here.
Ukraine, to be fair to Ukraine, we had been doing some great work.
Oh yeah, no, and
Increasing their military, giving them better military doctrine, their training and equipment. That
but
they had was far
everybody thought
superior to what it used to
Russia
be.
was the big scary bear that if he decided
Right.
to take a swipe, you
could
were
do
screwed.
anything. Well, that's what they thought.
And they're not.
And then they lost the airport, and they were like,
What? Yeah, no, Syria.
Yeah, This isn't
Oh,
Chechnya at
no,
all.
wait, did you hear
The
about
airport, the airport outside of Kyiv.
oh, that one. Yes. Yes. Yeah, that one. No, I was talking sorry, I was thinking about the one in Syria that where a single one squad of special operations
Oh
guys
yeah,
from
where
the
we got
US
into a firefight with the Russians.
wrecked
and
the
we
crap
just-
out of like
yeah,
300
we just
Russian.
wasted them because they haven't changed their military doctrine
So,
since World War One.
I heard a really cool. I don't remember where I heard this, so take this with a grain of salt. But I heard about an interaction between high-ranking U.S. military officials and Russia at the time, and somebody called up Russia and went, "Hey, you've got people in Syria. We're in Syria in this region doing this," and Russia went, "We don't have anybody down there." So they were like, "Okay, just to confirm, you don't have anybody in Syria."
That really helps with the diplomacy.
Yeah. Yeah,
When you go-
no, we
when
have
you-
nobody in
When
Syria.
you go light up a bunch of Russians that aren't there.
Yeah. We were like, "Okay, I'll call you later." And then our 20 guys over 18 hours wiped out an entire armored column and 300 troops. Air support obviously was
Right.
involved, but still.
Russians have
And
air,
then they called up-
Russians have air in Syria too. So
They
it
didn't at
isn't-
the time. So then they called them back and we were like, "There's definitely no Russians in Syria right now." Russia's like, "Oh,
Yeah, we heard.
yeah, we know." We didn't have any Russians in Syria. Apparently it was Wagner Group, so it was
Yeah.
plausible deniability crap.
Yeah, because there were no Russians in Syria.
Well,
It
there
was-
were no Russians
Yeah, what's
in
his
Syria.
face, and he's
Yeah,
dead now.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah.
We had a perfect example. Piss
Well,
Putin off, and you
We
go
did
away.
some stuff with mercenary groups in Georgia.
Oh yeah,
I know somebody
We
who
abs-
supplied their weaponry.
Yeah.
So or part of their weaponry.
Not going to talk about what I know
Yeah.
about that.
So because they asked for armament and we said, nah, we can't do that, but we can send you some mercenary troops. and
Yeah,
arm
no,
them."
we can't
So,
do that. But call this company.
Yeah, call these guys and
Yeah.
they can do that, and then some artillery.
Oh yeah, we deal with
some
black market
artillery
and shady
fell out
guys.
of the back of a C-130.
No, I'm sure it did.
And,
I'm sure it did.
and
Just like in Iraq, we lost $10 billion off the back of a C.
and that's
C-17.
And I think that's why I think that's why that airliner got shot down,
Probably
because some artillery fell out of the back of a C-130.
that.
And they were like, "Oh, we've seen this movie," and then they shot down the wrong plane.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah. So
Yeah, we dabble everywhere around the world, and my thought on that foreign policy thing, I don't like getting into foreign policy because foreign policy is so complicated that it's
Right.
hard to know all the pieces. But I think we should be, if we're going to be the world's police force, and I got to give our entire political cast credit for never doing this especially when we had chances to after World War I and World War II. We never were expansionistic after our Manifest Destiny thing to the coast. Since then,
not since World War II.
well, we weren't even expansionistic after World War I.
We took over a lot of the South Pacific.
We
have
retained it. We
Guam.
didn't leave.
Yeah, we have Guam.
We
and a couple
didn't
of
leave.
other,
But then we
yeah.
isolated ourselves. We
Diego
didn't, want
Garcia.
to, we didn't want to get involved in World War II. Like we tried to stay out of it.
If you look at landmass America has around the world, we're more imperialistic than you would think. We just don't do it in very large pieces.
So I wouldn't call it imperialistic because there's
well, we own it.
yeah, but it's
took it over.
it's all tactical. Like
It is
it's
tactical.
it's
It is all
strategic
strategic.
positioning
Yeah,
in order to protect our interests globally.
yeah. Wake Island.
Yeah,
I mean, there's just places out there
Yeah.
that
but we're not like I would personally prefer if we're
not
going to
taking
go
over economy.
if we are going to go around and be the world's police force, we start, putting the U.S. flag places. Like, no, Iraq's not Iraq anymore. It's the United States territory of
Iraq.
Iraq, right?
Yeah.
Afghanistan should have been the same thing. We shouldn't be playing around with we're going to go build your economy and build democracy. That's decades and generations of change.
Totally worked in Europe and Japan.
Right.
And so we just keep on thinking it'll work everywhere else. That may be the only time in history. Well, I don't know. The Romans got away with it.
No, the Romans took everything over.
Yeah, they did.
They took everything over. You
They
pay
didn't-
homage to
yeah.
Rome, we'll let you do your thing, but you pay homage to Rome and you'll be fine.
We're good.
But you you best kneel to Rome. Like that's what it was.
Yeah, we'll protect you and we'll tell you what to do.
I mean, Europe might as well be a U.S. territory with how much we spend on our military forces.
I hope there's a
Europe.
European out there that, yes, we do. Words that I hate to say is Trump is right on this one. I saw an argument that if we just left South Korea, we could help stabilize that whole peninsula.
No.
It was a good argument.
Well, sure. If by stabilize you mean send it back to the Stone Age.
Well, it was a good argument that we're an aggravating force in there, and just being there, it
What happens the moment we leave?
I don't know. The argument there was that South Korea would have to step up and take care of their own stuff, and that they would have to have better relations with North Korea. Or because they don't have to have good relations with North Korea right now because
U.S. is right here.
we're
Yeah.
right there. And
So-
so I think we might have something but similar where if Europe depended on themselves for their own military, that it might stabilize some stuff in Europe, might make things better for them. But
If you believe Putin.
but the trouble is,
If you believe Putin's not expansionistic.
well, no. I think they could withstand Putin on their own. I think they're strong. Their economies and their soldiers, if they were to make
Well, okay, but what do you mean by the U.S. withdraw? Do we also stop selling stuff to them?
No. We just get out. We just hand the
So we
bases
withdraw
over.
all of our
Yeah, and
forces,
you'd have to do it over a 15, 20-year period. Because
no
I don't
strategic use.
I don't think there's a level of military understanding in those societies right now. Taiwan's in a similar thing. Like they have soldiers, but they've never done anything, so they wouldn't know what to do if they had to go to battle. Now China has the same problem. They don't do anything either. So it'd be two completely inept armies fighting each other with us standing in the middle.
I'm glad somebody else called that.
So we'd be standing in the middle of a bunch of battle-hardened people and a navy that's right now, but China's isn't any better. They aren't any better. They aren't doing a better job than we are. I mean, our navy has issues, but for the same reasons everybody else.
But I just like calling out the fact that there are 12 super carriers in the world, and we own them all.
Yeah.
There are 20-something regular carriers in the world, and we own 18 of them, or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, overwhelming naval forces.
Yeah.
Just
And
like
one carrier is a bigger air force than most nations in the world. Just one.
all but like, I think it's all but like China
Yeah.
and Russia.
Yeah. Just
Maybe
one
Russia.
carrier.
Yeah.
Just one.
Yeah, just one.
I mean, just
75 F-35s.
it's insane.
What
Amount of firepower.
what is it like?
So-
The Gerald R. Ford literally has like 75
But I think-
F-35 Joint Strike Fighters.
I think
That's
Europe,
nuts.
I think Europe not depending. France, I think, is the only country that got it. And,
So
and they did a good. They did put their money into defense and getting their stuff instead of Germany put all their money into getting votes. And Angela Merkel should just
go away.
be shot.
I'm down with it. Treason.
Horrible.
Treason. Let's
Yeah.
do treason.
Yeah.
War Crimes Tribunal. Let's go that route.
With her own people putting her on trial for war crimes against them.
Yeah.
For
I am not.
for
So
what she did.
Europe-
It's absolutely. Anyway.